Good afternoon. Hi, Marsha.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Peachy King.
Glad to be here. It's a wonderful thing.
Welcome
Black
to the show.
News USA. We're loving this.
4 o'clock. Marsha, it's important to have the unnews.
The unnews.
The unnews. Yeah, you remember back in the day you had the uncola?
Uh-huh.
Because people are bombarded, particularly here in the city of Baltimore, with a particular news station and their angle. It's
Angle.
toxic. It's toxic.
But they've been toxic. Why are you expecting something different? This is not new.
Not expecting anything different. I want to provide
Aha.
something different.
Oh, good information. Well, why don't you start us off with this?
Okay, my name's Donnie Glover, and I'm here with the incomparable Marsha Jews. If you see a fight break out, I just suggest you step back
Yes.
and
Give us room.
give us room. Do not get in the middle. I highly caution against that.
Yes.
We've been joined by, well, introduce yourself, Michelle.
Oh, I get to introduce myself first. Okay. I am Michelle Pettis, and I am an author, a speaker. My book, Leaving Large: The Stories of the Food Addict. We're coming up on a year anniversary of the release of it. So I'm happy to be in the room, happy to be in the conversation. We're going to be talking about stress today. We're going to be talking about diabetes. We're going to be talking about self-care. Today is, am I right, Nick? Today is World Diabetes Day, right?
Yes, it is.
So tell us who you are, Nikki. Nikki Sweeney.
Yes. Well, good afternoon. Happy to be here. I'm Nick Sweeney. I'm the founder of Amani Nicole Wellness. We're a holistic wellness spa located right in Pikesville, but we're actually health innovation because we are self-care that meets healthcare. So we found a wonderful way to help women to reduce that barrier of stress so that we can work on our health.
That's powerful. How long have you been in business?
This October actually made 3 years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Congratulations.
Yes, we're happy to hear that. Yes, that's a wonderful thing. So let's talk about diabetes. That's a very interesting topic because a lot of Black people have diabetes. Can we talk about what those numbers look like and why Black people seem to be the ones holding on to this?
We are. We're at the top of the charts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one chart we don't want to top.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'll give you an example. The state of Maryland's diabetes diagnosis is just close to about 10% of the population. West Baltimore alone is at 15%.
Wow.
With predominantly Blacks. What's even more shocking, something that we're not talking a lot about, is the fact that we are, just like you mentioned, we are at a higher risk. But those pre-diabetes numbers are 1 in every 3 adults. And the numbers for our children are increasing as well. And a lot of that is centered around, like lifestyle and access.
So when we talk about lifestyle, we're really talking about what type of food we're eating and what that diet looks like. That's the priority, right? We can't even get into the exercise until we can get out of our mouth, right?
Absolutely. There's steps to this.
Yeah.
And there are terms: food deserts, social determinants of health. We look at our communities, how many supermarkets with fresh produce. We have more convenience stores and liquor stores than we do access to the foods that'll really help us to start to see those numbers decline.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, there's this the food deserts that Nick talked about and access, but there's also so many messages that we get that have us making choices that are unhealthy for us.
What messages? What do you mean messages?
No, I'm talking about messages in the media that drive desire for snack food and processed food. What people don't eat snack foods and fast foods and things that put them in a diabetic state, right? Out of hunger. It's not hunger, it's desire.
Hmm.
And once we get to some real understanding, right, and really get to changing people's belief system about what kind of foods are going to serve their body, and to learn how to make their health a priority, and eat for nutrition rather than for pleasure, then we can start seeing those numbers. We can start seeing those numbers shift. But as long as we're making these choices based on messages that we see about, food is happiness, food is family, food is culture, food is all of that, then we're gonna stay tripped up for way too long.
I think one thing I want to go back to with Nikki is that if we don't deal with the fact that we do have food deserts, and you have Doc Cheatham over in West Baltimore, who's been talking about food deserts for a long time. I'm in East Baltimore, food desert. You have to go down to Fells Point, or you got to go way out to the other part, or you got to go downtown, or you got to go out to Pikesville. You cannot find, and who was the woman, the March lady who opened up apples and oranges? It didn't last 5 minutes in East Baltimore. People weren't accustomed to having fresh foods and fresh things. They were accustomed and dealing with the prices, because the prices were exorbitant. She had to make her money, but it wasn't a community. When she tried this 10 years ago, it wasn't possible. And so if we haven't created an environment where people can go, and it's not the little corner store where they can get the liquor and the candy and the junk, then how do we do a paradigm shift if we do not have businesses that are interested in coming into our community, and politicians who are not supporting that change?
That's a mic drop question.
Is that a mic drop? That was
that's a mic drop.
I got one here somewhere. Here it is. Here
but
it is.
Wait
a minute. Let me drop the mic.
Yeah, because it's a big concern. Mm-hmm. And it's one of these illnesses that's taking us out. So the question becomes, what can we do first with what we have, while we work on a solution that will start to shift the way, it will be a culture shift. It'll be a generational shift, honestly. One thing for sure is that we work with what we have. Case in point, we used to do nutrition programs in the elementary schools. Creative City in Park Heights was one of them. Our kids ate spinach and carrots inside their yogurt. We did this really awesome treat, and the kids loved it. They wanted seconds. They wanted to take the recipe home. The parents loved it. So we first start by looking at what we have and using those resources. We have some supermarkets. I went to Food Stop in Bel Air Road last Saturday. We know they were on the news. They made headlines. The health department shut them down. They did what they needed to do to fix things, and the show moved on. We were there to provide nutrition education. And interestingly enough, in less than 2 hours, 45 families were impacted.
Wow.
Just simple steps. What can you do while you're here to make your family healthier, to live a little bit longer? Let's take some of these steps. So, Marsha, to your point, first, we start with what we have. We focus on how we can make those things better in terms of access. And then we work on a realistic shift that has to take place.
So, I think it's really fascinating when you talk about a real shift. And one thing I would like to bring to you, Michelle, you're making a life decision with your book and losing weight and eating and being a lot more conscientious about what you were eating and the impact that it was having on you. And we're here talking about Diabetes Month, which is impact. Can you just share with us some of that experience?
Yeah, sure. So, Marsha, the kind of like the net of it is that I struggled. I struggled with yo-yo dieting for 40 years. And once I got to 260 pounds at one point, I just stopped weighing. I didn't even want to look at it. But here's the thing that was, I think, a challenge for me is that I was never diabetic. I was never pre-diabetic. I never had high blood pressure. I didn't have any of those indicators for cardiovascular. I didn't have any of that. So for a long time, I could fool myself. But here's what I knew at one point is that even though I didn't have those indicators at that point, they were coming. It was going to happen if I continued down that path. And so I knew that I had to fundamentally change how what I believed about food, how I used food. And what I mean by that is that I actually went to the dictionary and looked up the definition of food. And when I looked up the definition of food, it said nutrition, nourishment, cell growth, all that, healthy, healthy, promote body tissue, healthy body tissues. And that's all it said, just for hunger and nutrition and nourishment. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head when I read that definition. And I started making decisions and looking at food. Is this nutritious? Is this the most nutritious thing I can eat right now? And so it meant that I had to start to become conscious about what I was eating, just like I was allergic to something, right? If you meet people and they say I'm allergic to shellfish, I'm allergic to peanuts or something like that, they're reading labels and scouring things. Oh no, I can't eat that. I'm allergic to it. My throat will swell up, my eyes will swell up. But I mean, yeah, I became like that about sugar. Same thing. I became like that about fat. I became like that about a number of other different things that I didn't want in my body. Just reading those labels. And here's the piece of it is that we get so many messages, advertising messages promoting food like substances. I don't even want to call it food, right? Promoting food like substances that have us eating, and we think it's food. And we're walking around. I was walking around, I know, undernourished. I was 260 pounds and malnourished.
That's
because
deep.
because I would just eat food because I saw it. I would eat food because everybody else was eating it. I would eat it because it was free. I was eating because it was just as an activity, as entertainment. Later for being bored and lonely and sad and all like that, right? It was just it tastes good. That's what drove me. What tastes good, not how I wanted to live. And so once I made a decision about how I wanted to feel in my body, what I wanted my life to be like, how I wanted to live, how I wanted to show up, then that guided me to start making smarter choices about what I was going to eat.
That guided you. That's a very important word. It guided you. And too often we're guided by things that are not healthy. We're guided by things and experiences and people that are not healthy. Right. And we have to really deal with that directional. What does it really mean in that, and how it can take over your whole being if you are not lucid.
If you are not lucid, if you are not vigilant, because and especially now with us headed into the holiday season.
Yes.
Food. The thing is, food is everywhere. This society makes it a part of everything. Let me tell you something. I play tennis, right? One time I went to the tennis court, and after we played tennis, somebody brought banana pudding to the tennis court. And I looked at it, and here's what I thought. I thought, in the old days, I'd be over there getting a cup myself, right? Just because somebody brought it. But I'm like, why? Why do we have banana pudding?
Right.
But what happened with that is I kind of like look back and, oh my goodness, you brought. And so now you see the banana pudding, you think about mama's banana pudding, you think about home, you start thinking, oh, isn't she a nice, thoughtful lady? She brought us banana pudding. So all these emotions jump on top of this on top of, or piled on top of this banana pudding that have
Right.
nothing to do with nutrition and nourishment. Right?
At all.
Damn, I want the banana pudding now. Damn.
And so then you deal with, oh, you're not going to have any? You don't want any? Right?
Mhm.
Everybody else is, and so you have to figure out.
They're
here's the-
shaming you with eating.
Well, not only they're shaming you, but you're dealing with your own feelings of feeling deprived, right? So you're feeling deprived because you think they're having some pleasure that you're not having. But as soon as you look at that banana pudding and you think of it as poison, right? You think of it as something that is not good for you. You don't feel deprived. So we have to change how we see food. We have to change how we see this food that does not serve our body. When we look at that sugar-laden foods, fat-laden foods, when we look at the simple carbohydrates, the junk food, where do we accept junk in our life and happily in any other place in our life other than food?
The other thing that is really upsetting for me, because there's an aggression about eating. You know, if you go to dinner and you say, okay, I've had enough, thanks. That's no, have another cup, have another bowl, have it. And that's going to happen at Thanksgiving. Oh, don't you want some more dressing? Come on, here's some more. We got plenty. We got plenty. We got plenty.
Yes.
But in that plentifulness, where nobody's really astute, maybe it's not astute, but present, to be able to say, at this Thanksgiving, we're not going to have all of those products, all of those dishes that are going to impact those people who already have problems with sugar.
Right.
This sugar is getting them. Sugar diabetes is still impacting them at that Thanksgiving dinner. And so, we don't think about that.
And so here's what I say, Marcia, and Nick, jump in anytime I take a breath. Is that we say all the time, at least I hear it all the time, food is my love language. How many times have you heard it? Heard people say that? And we do express affection through food, but we have to be clear that food is not affection. Food is just food. When you hug somebody, that's affection. When you love somebody, that's affection. And us using food as our love language is killing the people that we love.
It's murder one.
We are killing people we love by overfeeding them and feeding them the wrong things, because you look at it and I'm giving you this out of love, and I'm eating out of love because I respect your talent. I appreciate the fact that you thought about me. All of that comes in. And when you start thinking about these big, lavish holiday meals, they're at the root of that. There's this kind of it comes from this place of lack on many levels.
Lack of what? Love? Lack of kindness?
No. This lack. We have plenty, which means that there's some. There's plenty, because in the back, right? In the back, there's some history there when there wasn't plenty.
Overcompensating.
Yes. Oh, but this is representative of the fact that we have overcome, that we're no longer in this space. It's a status thing. Yes, we had 2 turkeys, we had 2 hams, we had food left over, right?
Oh, and we celebrate that,
right? Yes, yeah, and it's a celebration of excess, and it's really a celebration of waste.
Yes.
We don't come from that, because if you eat more food than your body needs, you are wasting food.
So here we are with a lot of people are dealing with obesity, and obesity. We've been on lockdown, so a lot of us are eating, we're gaining weight, and can't get in some of those dresses and the skirts anymore, and all of this. And so I'm going to switch over now to talk about your book and how you got to the point where you lost X amount of number of weight, and what people, because it's not only the weight that you carry, but the food that you're eating that isn't healthy, and it's not healthy that you eat so much of it. So let's talk about that, the diabetes and all the, between the two of you, let's share, because you have a spa that speaks to this, and you have a whole lifestyle that you've created around your book and your weight loss. So can you just share? We've got about 10 minutes left, y'all. So can you just, we have to do this again.
Share the love.
Yes, we're going to do this again. We have to go ahead.
So here's the thing. You know, Nick has this fabulous program. Nick has this fabulous program that hits all the points. What I have is some insight about mindset. Is that we can know what to do and not still do it. And that's the place where we live. And when we don't do it, it's because we're coming up a belief system that's in conflict with the action that we need to take. And that's where I work. That's where my work is, getting people to the place where they can start changing their belief systems around food, around what food means. And once you start changing your belief system, then it's easier to change behavior. But if you just stick with, I need to change my diet, I need to change my exercise, and stay focused on that without changing the belief system, you will always be in hell. You will lose the weight and gain it back. Wow. because you haven't changed what you fundamentally believe about food and how you fundamentally see it. It is a fundamental change in the belief system. And that takes time.
You know, yeah. And, you know, I'll jump in and add to that there are interesting statistics that show that women, especially Black women, that we wait until we're experiencing adverse symptoms, that we have to almost be, you know, dealing with something that an aspirin can't fix before we see a doctor. And the issue with chronic illnesses like diabetes is that they are silent killers. They don't come with major symptoms. Same thing with hypertension. Can't wait to talk about that in another segment.
Yes.
But the reason what you said, Michelle, jogged to me, because the issue with a lot of us, it's not all lack of knowledge. It is that mindset, but it's also, when we look at women, is how often do we carve out time for ourselves? And then how many of us are okay with being tired every day, all the time? Chronic fatigue is linked to these chronic illnesses as well. So what we do to start the process, because we wanted to be lifestyle oriented, like Michelle's experience, she made lifestyle changes. It wasn't a fad. It wasn't a trend. For us, our focus is helping that woman who know that it's important to make a change. She doesn't know where to start and she's overwhelmed. So we start with stress as the barrier. It's not that I don't want to do better, but it's really hard for me to carve out time to do it. It's hard to I'm taking care of everything and too much. And as a result, my health is taking a toll. But what happens when that woman starts to feel good? Because that's what our therapies do. They help the mind to start to calm, to soothe. The pressure is managed. It's a passive wellness experience that leads them to making those lifestyle changes, because diabetes can be prevented, number one. Two, we know it can be managed successfully, and we're not talking about with metformin. No disrespect to the healthcare system, but medication is there to serve a purpose.
Yes.
But medication is not designed to have you one day come off of medication. Lifestyle changes will do that.
Yeah.
So a consistency to that happens when we are naturally ready, by starting with those small changes that make sense, and that really becomes part of our, it becomes lifestyle. It becomes more of a habit, a gradual habit.
But don't we also have issues too if we're in a household with people other than just ourselves, and we have to accommodate everybody that's in the house and their desires? How do we find that balance to make certain that individually we are still doing what we need to do, regardless of whether or not others in that household want that?
That's a big one.
So I
make a decision.
You got you have to make a decision. And you know what, Marsha, I have found over time is that when you make a decision for your own health, when when you start to make you know what self-love is. We hear all sorts of stuff about self-love and self-care and all that. And the conclusion I have come to, that what's at the root of that is us making self-honoring choices.
Self-honoring.
Self-honoring choices. Self-honoring choices about our bodies, about our lives, honoring our own voice about what's good for us. And understanding, yeah, there may be other people in the house that you take care of, but until you take care of yourself first, you can't take care of other people. I mean, you hear all sorts of stories about caregivers breaking down, and the person that they were taking care of, is still, live and kicking, but the caregiver's worn out.
That's right. That's
And
right.
we spend so much, and what happens is that what Nick was talking about, when you feel bad, you don't all of a sudden feel bad. It just creeps up on you.
That's right.
1% today, I feel a little bit worse, 1% worse today than I did yesterday. You don't feel it so much, that little 1%, but that little 1% keeps adding up. Just like that little 1% of weight keeps adding up, and you don't see it in the mirror day to day. And then you all of a sudden you look up and you don't even recognize yourself. And you get so used to feeling a certain way, you get numb to how you feel and how you look. You don't even remember what it used to be like. And it starts to get normal. You start looking at yourself and feeling how you feel, and that ill health and that ill feeling and the way you look starts to look like that's just how it is. You don't, and you get to a point on some level, and Nick, you can back me up on this because I'm thinking you don't even realize that you deserve better. Right. And so we have to work through that. This is what good health looks like. This is what it feels like. And I deserve to have it.
Period.
And the family have to get on board.
Or not.
Communication is key. I don't think we talk enough about the adverse effects. How many family members do we have on dialysis? How many family members have lost a limb? How many family members have neuropathy, have had cataract surgeries? We are not linking these things to diabetes. And so when mama make a change, everybody in this house going to have to stand up. If I'm eating broccoli, you eating broccoli tonight too.
Right. Yep. Come along.
We have to talk about, why am I making these changes and why I need your support.
Yep.
That even in a house full of people, I shouldn't have to feel like I'm doing this on my own. Now, we know it's a process,
right?
But at the same time, if I'm making a change and I value my life so I can be here for you, I want you to get on this journey with me. And it may take you a minute, but this is what I'm fixing.
Right.
And maybe what that is sitting at the dinner table without the dinner and the books. Bring your book and have a conversation, and bring shows similar to this where the discussion can be presented, where people in the family that are at that table can really talk about the reality of what that binging looks like.
Yes.
And the impact that it's going to have short term and long term.
Absolutely. And so, you think about it, Marsha, like the title of my book is Leaving Larger Stories of a Food Addict. And when I wrote it and where I am now is much of a different place. And as we're talking about diabetes now, and we're talking about people losing limbs and their eyesight, and on a intellectual level, people know the consequences of diabetes, right? They know, and people know the consequences of overeating. People know it, but they still do it anyway. And that's what addiction is. That's what food addiction is that in the face of dire consequences, you still participate in activities that don't support you, whatever the activity happens to be.
Exactly right.
And I got to say, when I look at that tells me that this issue for so many people, whether they admit it or not, is addiction.
Period.
It's not just diet. It's bigger than diet. It's food addiction that they haven't come to grips with or recognized. Because if somebody knows if I eat this, I'm going to lose my leg, but I'm still going to eat it. That means that they haven't figured out how to make a different choice.
Okay, so we're going to close on that note. Please give us how you get in touch with you.
So I want to say very, very quickly that Nick and I will be continuing this conversation tomorrow night. We're going to be continuing the conversation in a private Zoom call. I think the information is in the chat. At least I hope it's in the chat. But you can get
it. I can't see it in the chat.
You can't. Okay.
So give us your email. Just give us your email or website.
My email is Michelle@michellepettis.com. Email me,
Nick.
I'll send you the link. Email Nick, find her at Amani Nicole Health. I'm going to tell people how to find you. I don't know.
Right.
It's AmaniNicole.com. I just changed my name. AmaniNicole.com. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Amani Nicole Wellness. There's no E on Nicole.
Okay. Thank you both so much. We really appreciate having you on. That was very good information. And diabetes is real. We have to watch our diets and watch our families and make certain that we take care of ourselves. Thank you all for joining us.
So, Marcia, you good?
Hi.
Marcia, we've been joined by Mr. Michael Haney and
Michael
also
Haney.
Mr. Richard.
Hey, Miss Jules.
Hey, Mr. Elliott.
J. Elliott.
How's everybody?
Good.
Great. Good to see you, Marcia. Welcome back.
Great. It's
Black
good to be
USA.News.
seen. Yes, good to be seen.
So, Richard, how are you? You with us?
I'm here. Yep, I'm good.
Good.
Right,
How have you been, Richard? We haven't talked with you since the election.
Okay, so we can start going over some of those results and
no, I would just want to know how you're doing, Richard.
Oh, I'm great. As a matter of fact, I'm about to bring up a link while we go on to the next topic that I'm gonna put in the chat.
Okay, Mr. Haney, what's been on your news agenda? Give us an update on Wake Up Baltimore, also your Sunday show, 60 Minutes in Black America. And let me just
Donnie.
I want to commend all of you for being a part of this network. I think that we are making wonderful strides across the country.
Hey, no doubt about that, Donnie. And thanks for asking. Last night on 60 Minutes in Black America, we had Maxwell Doozy as we talked about Africa and attempted to increase people's knowledge about Africa and wonders why Africa isn't as part of the conversation in America like Ukraine and North Korea and Russia and some of the other countries. And we talked about we talked about colonization. On Wake Up Baltimore, I heard you talking about diabetes. Most of the show this morning was dedicated to education on diabetes. And it was very, very well received. BlackUSA.News, the voice of the people, bringing information to the people across communities in this country, man. Tomorrow, Wednesday night, we have Kamal Hubbard. Everyone's heard about cryptocurrency, the debacle, the fallout with cryptocurrency. FTX is bankrupt. Elon Musk is pulling his money out of it. So we have a special Wednesday night, 9 p.m. on BlackUSA.News, especially talking about the fallout of cryptocurrency this coming Wednesday, 9 p.m.
Okay, so Richard, in terms of the election, were you surprised in any of the races? First of all, let us all just join in and congratulate this new governor. This is a historic election, the first Black governor in the history, some 238 years of Maryland.
Yeah, that's huge. Congratulations, Westmore.
So Wes is the first Black governor of Maryland. Anthony Brown is going to be the first Black attorney general. And Brooke Learman is the first woman independently elected to executive office. Obviously, Mikulski won Senate. That's not an executive office from like governor and AG are.
But when you really talk about Westmore and history, you have to talk about the fact there's only been 3 elected.
Seems like
Three.
Michael Haney is frozen up. That would be down in Virginia, Doug Wilder.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What was it, Deval Patterson?
Deval
Mhm.
Patrick,
Patrick.
and then
This is the
Patterson
most
was
recent, the youngest. Doug Wilder.
Yeah, he was down in Virginia.
Patterson was appointed as governor after Elliot Spitzer resigned, and then did not run for governor, and Cuomo ran.
Mhm.
Mr. Haney, let me just interject. Your sound is going in and out, just so you know. So you were
Yeah, I'm
on and
working
then
on it.
off.
Hopefully it'll be stable. Yeah, hopefully it'll be stable. But
It's
I
stable right now.
apologize for that. I'm in transition.
Okay.
I was just saying about the significance of Westmore as the third, and you guys picked up on that.
And in the state house,
I mean, is it not unbelievable? I mean, it's been less than a week. This is something different. This is revolutionary. State of Maryland, south of the Mason-Dixon line, an African American elected to head the state. This is just mind-blowing.
It's certainly exciting.
Well, I think what's mind blowing is that we don't have a white male on the Board of Public Works in Annapolis, and it'll be interesting to see how the money flows. Not that you want to be unfair, but you want to be fair. So it'll be interesting to see how the money flows.
What does that mean?
Well, in terms of minority participation in contracts, the inability of this state to achieve its 32% participation goal. So now you have a
29%, 29%.
well, I thought it was 32, 29%. We never came close to either number, so it's
No, we
been
didn't.
irrelevant. So I think the relevance of a Westmore and a Brooke Learman and a Derek Davis out of Prince George's County on that board, there's no excuse for us. There's no excuse for us to not be involved in businesses and believe that we're going to get our fair share, or be able to at least get our fair share and be primes and not subs when it comes to contracting with the state. Exciting.
And so
Sometimes,
that
though,
means
we
that,
have this expectation that it's going to happen because a person is in that seat that looks like us, or we think that they are representing us. And it doesn't always happen. How do we make certain that we track and every one of the people who are in there that are making those decisions and are controlling the budgets and have the opportunity to make certain that they're selecting an equal amount of people who look like us?
okay, that's a great question, Marcia. And that's where your Maryland Minority Contractors Association, your Maryland Washington Minority Contractors Association, the businesses associated with this network, that's where all of these businesses need to get better organized, better in tune, better connected to the president and their respective leaders, to make sure that we are staying abreast of every
Right.
contract that comes down the pipe. So you can have a Westmore throwing the ball downfield all day long. It is imperative, however, that we be down the field in a position to catch the
To be the
ball
receiver.
and score.
Right. To be the receiver. And part of my challenge is that whether or not we have the right people who are in place to track it and the right place to do it.
Okay. Again, it requires us to get involved and be proactive. There are people who monitor the Board of Public Works. There are people who it's their job to dole out contracts or to tell people about contracts, and not just on a state level, locally.
Right.
I think it's time for everybody to step their game up. No excuses. I don't see Westmore as an excuse-oriented person. I see him as a no excuse type of person who is about getting it done. And if there are people in position in these various agencies who don't understand what time it is, then they should pack up and go home and let someone in there who will make sure that we get to that 29% MBE participation, that we make sure our young people get a solid education. I mean, Richard, you've taught in Baltimore City Public Schools. What are your thoughts?
So in relation to where you already started the conversation, we can talk about the transition team members for Wes, for Brooke, and for Anthony Brown. They've announced them. There should be an informal article on this upcoming this week. For Brooke, her transition team is Angela Also Brooks, Prince George's County executive, Susan Lee, senator from Montgomery County, Candace Dotson Reed, who is the chief of staff at UMBC, my alma mater, Jocelyn Pena Melnick, a delegate from Prince George's, who is the chair, who's about to be the chair of the Health and Government Operations Committee. Anthony Brown's transition team is just two people, Donna Hill Staten, who is the first Black judge ever appointed in Howard County, along with David Tobin or David Tubin, who is the dean of the UMD School of Law. For Wes, his transition team includes Paris Glendenning, Jocelyn Pena Melnick, Angela Also Brooks, obviously he's Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, former Howard County Executive Kenneth Allman, who was also Anthony Brown's Lieutenant Governor nominee. And then there's a variety of other people who are on it. Delegate Stephanie Smith, Senator Hayes. From that grouping of people, I'm not dissuaded to think that Wes is going to have the worst intentions in the world, but it's very, very Baltimore centric. I'm a Prince Georgian, very Baltimore centric. The article from Maryland Matters that talked about the people from Prince George's, the two it talked about were Paris Glendenning and John McDonough, both of whom are like in their 70s, old white men who have absolutely nothing to do with like contemporary Prince George's politics besides showing up for the Steny Bull Roast. So I want to see that among the Prince George's crowd, beyond Angela Also Brooks, who he includes, he also announced his chief of staff. His chief of staff is going to be Fagan Harris from the Baltimore Core program. He's the CEO. And Moore helped Fagan start that program. I think Wes was his first president of that board.
Yeah, I heard that. But I wonder as well, when you have, what do we think about Paris Glendenning as the governor when he was governor? Was there something in his during those two terms? What did he do anything that was egregious, or are we comfortable with him? What's the expectation?
This was like when I was an infant. Even during that time, I lived at Fort Meade, so like he wasn't even really my governor. My grandpa was like the base commander, so my grandpa was like governor for all intents and purposes.
Okay.
So I can't give as much of like I was there to give an ebb and flow, but like he had a very low approval rating because of leaving his wife to get a new spouse who was a person in his administration, and he presided over multiple uses of the death penalty. But then on the other hand, to give him some hosannas, Larry Young, I'm not going to rate you all's opinion of him. Larry Young said that Glendenning was one of the best governors the states has had. I don't think we really have the quality of like historical info to really like just in the state. People in Maryland don't really study Maryland history. They study national history or other stuff. So there really isn't the kind of stuff for me to rate him beyond a couple of policy things. He helped protect the Chesapeake Bay. But from another standpoint, Moore has to get the expertise from somebody who was governor before. And I would much rather it be Glendenning than O'Malley or than Ehrlich or than Hogan.
Well, O'Malley has his hands in everything, so he's not going to be too far.
O'Malley is undoubtedly playing some role, but he is not on the official transition team.
Right. And he likes it like that. Donnie, so what you think about this whole gubernatorial?
I'd like to listen a little more. I'm in a listening mode.
Well, I think really what's critical is not Fagan as the chief of staff. What's critical is Tisha Harris as the appointment secretary, guarding the gate of those who will be heading up various agencies and the gatekeeper of those that are coming into offices to ensure that what he wants to get across in his bureaucracy. So how does he manage bureaucracy, where we typically have the issues with our communities getting what it is that they deserve, their due, that usually is the stopgate. So I think Tisha Edwards, who has worked with Wes now in three, so she worked with him with Bridge Ed, also worked with Wes on his campaign as chief of staff. Now she goes to government bureaucracy as his appointments, very important position as appointments secretary. And I think that that's going to be a telltale in terms of where Westmore looks to get his talent to head up these agencies. Paris
Uh,
Glendenning, look at what he did to Prince George's County. Very uneventful governor. I thought that Ehrlich followed Glendenning. Did he? Or was he? So that tells you right there how good Glendenning was. And I think he had the Kennedy girl that ran for governor and lost. So that speaks volumes to his administration and his effectiveness, looking at his county, looking who became governor after him, and who he had to put up for governor to replace him when he was term limited out. So Glendenning maybe has some institutional knowledge, but maybe to what West has to do in terms of having certain voices in his administration. Let's just hope when it comes to Board of Public Works, we don't kind of see these people dancing around, and that's some of the apprehension.
Well,
okay,
wait, Donnie,
no,
Donnie,
no, no. I'm gonna get my 2 cents in now. I'm hearing some shade being thrown on the first black governor.
No, you're not.
Uh,
No.
let me comment. I did not interrupt you. This man has not even been sworn into office. And already, now I'm not surprised at the Baltimore Sun. Just yesterday, they wrote, "How will Westmore govern?" Awaiting the specific policy priorities behind the bold campaign promises, written by Sam Janesh and Hannah Gaskill. Now, I'm just reminded I'm here talking with Marcia Jews, Richard Deshae Elliott, and Michael Haney, who are certainly African American. I want to go on. He says, they write, Maryland's next governor is setting high expectations. And I'm not reading much longer. Both before and after his landslide victory Tuesday, Democratic Governor-elect Westmore has talked of a vast idealistic vision for his time leading state government. Now, here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. But for someone who spent his career outside government, aside from a few internships and a year-long fellowship in Washington, D.C., it's not yet known how Moore will prioritize and govern both short and long-term goals. Also to be determined is how he'll manage essentially 40,000 employees with a depleting number. Now, those aren't disparaging comments from some reporters I've never heard of before today.
So I got to say this. First of all, anything coming out of Sinclair and Fox is racist. And the second thing, anything coming out of the Baltimore Sun is racist.
Why would you
and
say
I
that?
wouldn't care, because that's what they have demonstrated from the time I moved here to the time I left and came back. And they're still doing the same thing they were doing before I left.
Marsha,
and they've still been racist.
You just can't call them racist.
I can call them racist because that's what they are. Look, my parents told me, believe when they show you who they are, believe them. They've been showing us who they are since I've been in this town.
What do you mean?
We can quantify. We will absolutely help Marsha quantify what she just says.
I
That's
have this.
easy.
I have this. Marsha,
That's easy.
do you have a specific example of you dealing with the son and you found them to be racist?
Anything that I did or have done, or anybody that I've known and have been involved with, have gotten negative remarks, comments, commentary that look like me in the Baltimore Sun. I've said it out loud to Reggie. I went to the woman's office, the woman who was the publisher at that time. I can't remember her name. I went into her office with the guy who left Baltimore, went out to John Carroll was his name, went to some other city, and I had to have a conversation about what all he has said and done in his newspaper to his face and to whoever, whatever the woman's name was who was a publisher at that time. And so I've said it to their faces.
And what
I
did
didn't
they
say
say?
it in the background. They said, that's not true, Marsh. And I said, you're a damn lie. And then what happened at that time, Tyrone Tabin, because I was arguing about the fact that the Black Engineer of the Year conference been coming to Baltimore for forever, and they were trying to keep them here. And they never wrote about them. They never said anything about it. The largest conference of Black scientists and engineers and technologists in the world, and they never would write about them. So I got really ticked off and set up, Mary Junk was her name. And then I said, okay, I'm going to go over there and talk to him. She brought John Carroll, who's a racist
Hold
dog.
up. Wait
and
a minute.
He sits
You
there.
went over. Hold up.
I went to the Baltimore Sun office, got a meeting with Mary Junk. That was 1994. Mary Junk came. I was in the leadership program, the GBC leadership program. And Mary Junk came to speak to my leadership class. And I said to her afterwards, I need to talk to you face to face. And this is what I told her why I wanted to talk. She said, well, call up and we're going to have whatever the girl's name was, set up an appointment. And I went over there. This is 1994. I went to that office. And John Carroll, I said, John Carroll, the reality is that the Black people in Baltimore believe that the Baltimore Sun is a racist newspaper. And John was just appalled. I said, well, why are you so appalled? You never do. And then I start going into all the things. I had a list. And I said, well, hold on just a minute. Imogene was a secretary sitting out in the main hallway. I'll never forget this as long as I live. I said, if you don't believe me, let me tell you all the Black generals and corporate leaders who believe that you're racist. And I got a tape and paper that Tyrone and the whole team put together, and they brought it in. And I took it and I swung it down that doggone boardroom table. And I said, if you don't believe me that I'm racist, why don't you let all these generals and all these PhDs and all these corporate leaders tell you how racist you are? And then we turn around. She had a whole thing somewhere in this house. I got something written where they have a picture of me. Now they're going to write about the doggone Black Engineer of the Year Awards conference. So
Right.
I've been dealing with the Baltimore Sun. This is 2022 and it ain't changed. The names have changed, but the seats are holding the same type of people that are there.
Michael Haney, can you relate to this type of treatment of the Black community by? Has he frozen up? Richard Deshay, how about you? Can you relate?
Yeah. And I'll be a scientist to Marsha being an artist about style of complaint. When I was doing my thesis, there was another person in the class studying two instances from the Baltimore Sun's reporting. One of them was the riots in the 60s, and the other one was the uprising in 2015. And what it showed was very, very clear racial language about how they discussed the entire incident. You can go further into underplaying and minimizing the causes of both incidents. We can go into, just very deliberate, obvious one. The one with the most obvious point of agreement that Sean Suiter didn't kill himself, which only people at the Baltimore Sun appear to believe. Outside of that, everybody else knows is not true. So the Sun has absolutely.
Thank you for that. Nor did Robert Lee Clay kill himself.
Yes.
Right.
So the Sun simultaneously has minimized important stories regarding Black figures that have gone missing for whatever reason.
And disregard.
negatively speaks about the Black public at large, doesn't cover Black middle class life in any kind of aspect. And I mean, just to be frank, it's not even a Baltimore City paper. It's like a suburban Baltimore Times, which makes it even stranger of a paper to cover. It's a paper about the city, not for city consumption. Also, I encourage people not to subscribe. You can't unsubscribe from the Baltimore Sun. You have to cancel your card, so don't subscribe.
Let me just ask you, Kyrie Irving is in the news, Marsha.
Oh, who's that?
Richard, help me out. Who is Kyrie Irving?
Okay, so Kyrie Irving is a basketball player who plays for the Brooklyn Nets. Most well known for playing alongside LeBron during the championship era with the Cavaliers. Got in trouble for comments widely derided as anti-Semitic, although in recent days, NBA players and the general public have come much more to his defense, and it's incredibly unclear what could happen. Kyrie could retire. Kyrie could be forced out the league. Kyrie could come back and choose to ball out. It remains very unclear. And this is all happening at the same time they're trying to hire the coach from the Celtics that was removed for cheating on Nia Long with a subordinate. NBA season has a lot of drama.
Does this have anything to do with Kanye West?
Oh boy, what a question. So I'll give opinion, I guess. Like, Kanye's statement was that he wanted to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, a particularly wild comment because it implies you don't know if DEFCON 1 or 5 is the highest DEFCON. Since then, lost at least $2 billion in advertising deals, lost his agreement with Adidas, lost, partnership deals with Balenciaga and a lot of other entities. And now just only really appears on social media now to doing rants and comments about things that I'm not going to pretend to understand in this program. But people widely, some people claiming both are making or have made anti-Semitic comments, with Kyrie having posted a link to a movie which is still available on Jeff Bezos's Amazon Prime for watching. Has not been removed yet, as of my knowings.
Well, any final thoughts?
Yeah, you're in America, and while it says land of the free, the home of the brave, we can be brave, but I don't know how free we are, because words in this country can be used against you. And even though you think you're doing what you should be able to have the freedom of speech, you can't have the freedom of speech when it's impacting others who have the power over you.
And when we do have the freedom of speech, me personally and on this network, unless it is a specific reason, we do not use words like
any words that are words that are
I'm not going to give anyone license to call me one.
Right. So we're going to take the high road on this show.
On this network.
Period.
Good deal. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you both. I do think we have a bomb network. Richard, tell them where you are, when we can catch you. Marsha, we're just getting Richard back. He's been freed from the 600-pound gorilla. He's out of the cage. We're going to be seeing him now much more on the network with all of his intelligence. By the way, Wes Moore went to the same school you went to, Richard.
Yep, he went to Hopkins. That's not a good thing, but I'll take it.
Richard.
Richard.
Richard, you can't do this for 4 years, Richard. It's really a waste of energy.
You mean 8? I believe he'll be reelected if he runs again.
He will. It's 5 o'clock, but Mr. Haney is chiming in, but we're going to chime on out here. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. But again, thank you very much, Richard. Thank you, Marsha. Marsha, I want to acknowledge to those listening that some time ago you mentioned to me the building of a network and the the pandemic happened, and then this network happened, and you helped build it. And here we are today, because they asked me, like, why Marsha get to do what she want to do. And it's a long story, but this is, you are a parent to this organization. You help to make it be. A special thank you also to our dear friend, Mr. Michael Haney. Richard Deshay, we're building all of this for you, and we got to work on your backdrop, bud, to get you a more professional backdrop. Buy him a green screen, because I see all of your family's coats right there. Okay.
Those are
Bye.
all
Love
my
y'all.
coats, Donnie. Thank you.
At least you'll stay warm.
And then there's
Take
that.
care.
Take care. Good evening, people.
Good evening.
Good evening.